and the son Jupiter, or Kronos and Zeus, as they're called in Greek mythology. In the historical sense, ritual murder and cannibalism are a fact. It's also a fact that it exists in the contemporary sense. It goes on in the world today, and in areas that people are totally unaware of. But the question is, why would people do this, and how did it all get started? This is where we go back to Cain, and particularly a character called Nimrod. I prefer this discussion if they're trying to give the worldwide thing, because it just gives one aspect about how one group of humans have gone down this way. Other groups of humans did exactly the same thing. The Mayans, Mesoamericans had the same problems, where they adopted murderous practices. The Chinese did, and so on. And everybody's gone through this phase in all the different cultures. But in terms of the culture, that what you might call Eurocentric Western culture, it's the key question for anyone following this line of inquiry, in hoping to make sense of what they will discover, is to ask, where did it all get started? So, in thinking about that, during our last chat, we touched upon the idea that many Christian churches teach that the Bible tells us about fallen angels and how they impregnated human women to produce a race of giants that terrorized the earth. So this is actually a very good place to start with how some of this stuff gets into the culture that we have, because it's there in what you would call the Christian ideology. It's also there in the esoteric and the cult thing. So, the concept of actual miscegenation between humans and spiritual demonic entities, is something that the ancient Hellenistic religions are full of, and this is directly related to Babylonian concepts of Saturn worship. So it was this idea of angel-human miscegenation is part of this overall Hellenistic pagan influence that was being blended as much of the early Christian churches, much to the consternation of the Apostle Paul. And unfortunately, the idea of fallen angels having giant babies with human women has also become a foundation, which I would say is a rotten foundation upon which a great deal of Christian popular theology and eschatology and prophecy is based. However, here's the good news and the bad news. It's this, that the elite dark occultists and various Saturn worshippers, whatever you might want to call them, have also made this crucial mistake in believing that divine entities, angels, have copulated with human women to produce giants or titans. And the only difference between the modern Christian concept that most Christians would hold to of this interpretation and that of the Saturn worshippers is that the Saturn crowd, they love the idea. They want in on it. And they have been trying to forge these kinds of unions with these perceived spiritual entities for at least the last 2,500 years. This is the reason for all the sex magic orgies, the rituals associated with the lower end of occult practitioners, and occasionally, they murder somebody in the act. So their shared mistaken belief with Christianity, that fallen angels, or the so-called, the Watchers of Genesis chapter 6. I think in our last interview I said Genesis chapter 8, but it was chapter 6. This concept went down with the fallen angels idea. This idea that they are said to have cohabited with human women to produce giants. This is central to why the biblical character Nimrod is considered so important in occult and Saturnian worship circles, since he is supposedly one of these giants, one of these hybrid species that went on to sort of bully themselves on the earth and throw their weight around. And so nowadays, everyone who gets into the various variations of Saturnian worship, whether it's the pretty pathetic Thelemite type stuff to Masonic ritual to whatever you can identify these Saturnian influences in. Why everyone who is involved in that, they want to be a Nimrod. All right. And what I mean by that is they want to be reincarnated into the family bloodlines that he is said to have spawned. Family bloodlines that are believed to be a superior hybrid species infused with the blood of demonic spiritual entities tied directly to the god Saturn himself. So that's the essence of the sex magic rituals, the human sacrifice, are really attempts to influence and enjoin Saturn-related entities into becoming part of your reincarnated future. These guys have a reincarnated rather than a resurrected vision of the future. And they want to, at the point of conception, influence it so that their reincarnated journey is joined by these entities, enjoined by these entities, to give them that inside what you would call specialness when they become reincarnated. It's so adverse to the biblical concept of resurrection that it always beggars belief how they came up with it. But that is essentially it. They have a reincarnation basis to a lot of their thinking, and their whole drive is to effectively make sure that at the point of conception, when they are reincarnated, that they're getting some of this angel blood, this fallen angel blood, this Nephilim type existence, and that unfortunately is why you get such extreme ritualistic sacrifices that involve killing, rapes of babies, all these sorts of things. It's all designed to get the attention of these entities to become a part of the conception process of the person in the future. I dare bring it up, abortion. It's very interesting when people believe, there's an argument, when is a human a human? Is it at birth or is it at conception? The Christian believes it's at conception. Funny enough, the Saturn worshippers who are all for abortion also believe life begins at conception. And whether people like it or not, abortion is very much in line with that whole passing of the firstborn through the fires of Moloch, pure Saturn worship. And a lot of that creates the energy for these people to then ensure, in whatever ritualistic way, that Saturn entities are present at their own reconception when they are reincarnated.
So you bring up Moloch and the belly of the beast symbology there. Can you expand on that a little bit and how that ties to the Saturnian sky? I believe there's a strong connection there.
Yes. Well, let's look at some of what Saturn is about. Okay, a thumbnail sketch of what Saturn is he is somebody he's a god who castrates himself, who proceeds to try and eat his children, and proceeds to engage in all manner of rape and crime, while also being claimed to be the god of law and order, along with his son Zeus. All right, so you've got this dichotomy that takes place in how Saturn is perceived to be this force for good and evil, doing it all at the same time. And it is the aspect of the self-castrating, cannibalizing god that is there in all the major mythologies when it comes to the Saturn archetype that most informs the modern occultist when it comes to these ritualistic crimes, like passing children through the fires, of Moloch and so on. Now, the